And enough of mothers, because now we've got to go to All Out of Sellouts on September the 7th, the big pay-per-view following the last big pay-per-view a couple weeks ago. And you said earlier, and by the way, I apologize again, the lawnmowers are on the other side of the house now, if you're going to complain about my roaring in the background. But you said earlier they had a halfway decent house for once. Well, for what they've been doing lately in this country, domestically, it was, but still, this was All Out. And I saw a graph showing their gates in Chicago. Have they killed Chicago with the Punk debacle? Because they didn't sell out a pay-per-view at the smaller building in Chicago, Illinois.
You know, it's interesting. We always thought that was going to be the biggest direct hit, was how Chicago would accept AEW and react to certain people like Jack Perry, the Young Bucks, etc. But it turns out Punk, and the way everything went down, it really killed the company's overall interest. And I mean, the ratings downfall since Punk, and then a second time since the Punk video, that's the story. And Chicago's probably held up pretty good, all things considered. Not only the Punk thing, but overrunning the market. How many times are they in Chicago or Champaign or nearby or close? So, and the final number, by the way, according to WrestleTix, 8,660 tickets sold, or tickets distributed. Last year, 9,826.
And they started out with the United Center, right? So, anyway.
Oh, that's right. They were at the United Center last year. This was at the Now Arena.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they started out long ago. They sold out the United Center when they were starting to run Chicago.
That's right.
And, you know, the point is they're doubling down. And I mentioned it earlier in the program. The people who are there, the fans of this, they don't care about the people. They don't care about the individual talents. They may cheer for a few more than most, but they want to see chaos and carnage and the clown show wrestling where nothing beats anybody and it looks like a video game, intermixed with the kind of shit that I would imagine if you're an Insane Clown Posse fan, you like to see needles stuck in people's faces and, you know, fucking everybody set on fire and that type of gaga. And that has driven either whatever you want to call them, the regular wrestling fan, the fan that wants to see stars and big names instead of bullshit, the fan that wants to see shit make sense. They're doubling down on what keeps their audience small, and these small audiences are eating it to fuck up.
Are they? That's the other thing. Eating it the fuck up is the reactions AEW was getting 5 years ago. This is a crowd that comes and they sit there. And well, they sit there
except for when someone is nearly paralyzed, and then they'll cheer for 10 seconds and scream about that, and then they don't care anymore.
No one stands up. Like, they had several shots of the crowd when people were coming out, and everyone was just sitting there politely.
Well, because nobody can get killed on the entrance. Right? Why stand up? Wait till he gets out there where somebody's going to fucking run him through with a goddamn red-hot poker.
You know, you have been very critical, as we all have, correctly so, about AEW's booking and creative since the beginning. Tony Khan's creative. There's a term you've used and popularized, mark booking. I would argue, especially the latter half of this card, this may be the single greatest example of mark booking in AEW history.
I think it was, because they have decided to double down on all the stupid indie shit that has kept them from getting any bigger and indeed has made them smaller. Because people will see that what the fuck are these? When you are trying to appeal to a small audience of people who like weird fucking things, and ignoring the fact that most people are just thinking, well, all these guys are stupid. The baby faces are stupid. The heels are stupid. They're all goddamn stupid. You want people to dislike the baby face's actions. You want people, or dislike the heel's actions, rather. You want people to support the baby face and what they want to do, but you don't really want them to think either side is just a bunch of fucking morons, do you?
You know, I could see, you know, like, again, it was a typical AEW show until the last two matches, really. The last two matches are what you look at, and it was an amazing one-upmanship between these competitors, but we have a road to get there, I guess.
Yes, yeah, all right. Well, MJF, again, the smartest man in the room, he said, put me on first, because I'm not going to cut off any of my goddamn appendages, so I don't want to even go second, because who knows what's going to happen with these people. But he had to make something out of an indie schlub that they are transfixed with pushing. And so therefore, MJF's ability to contribute much to this show was neutralized. By the way, speaking of contributing, what did the 8 announcers on a 4-hour show contribute in terms of cohesiveness? They started out with Sockface and Shivani and Nigel McGuinness and Matt. And his shtick of the Nasty Boys on meth would kind of work if he was over as a talent, but everybody knows he's a job guy, so it's, shut the fuck up. Who are you acting like this? You're not a personality first. And then they brought Taz in, and then they brought JR in by the end, and I'm trying to, was there another one in there in the middle somewhere?
We always talk about how bad the commentary is. It was amazingly bad here. And considering Jim Ross has been in the news and Tony Khan made him an issue with the Stephen P. New thing, this was not a good Jim Ross performance. Excalibur, it feels like, I've never been a fan of his, and I think he's terrible at what he does. But it feels like he's like melting down almost more and more.
Yes.
You know, it's just like he loses like the ability to talk.
I've got to get this out. I'm scared. I'm not going to get this out. But you know what? I'm not making any sense while I'm not getting this out.
Taz is stuck. Taz can only do so much. Unfortunately, the best stuff with Taz is him fighting with Shivani, who is unbearable. He's unbearable by saying nothing. Everything is him complimenting one or the other. Good call. Good call. Just call the fucking match. Don't tell the commentator he's doing good calling it.
Or laughing at something that's really ridiculous, but he's laughing at it when it's violent because he's like, well, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Or he just lies to you, like saying Sasha Banks and Hikaru Shida are two of the greatest out there today, or whatever the fuck he was saying. Or he just tells you how great everything is. Or he just jumps in with nothing. And then him and Excalibur together, I don't think AEW, because they're in their own bubble, recognize the damage those two do on commentary to anyone who wants to give them a chance. Because we hear it from people too.
Well, anyway, it was 4 hours of that type of thing.
4 hours of mute.
But, you know what? They need a good mute wrestler. Remember, Salento Rodriguez was over.
He just died recently. I don't understand why Tony doesn't have a second English commentating team available on one of the other options, because it would only help your product. It would make it better to have a second team there that doesn't suck, that's not filled with all of this and just you jamming people into the... I mean, like you said, Nigel was there, then he was gone. Nigel probably would have done a better job calling some of the stuff he didn't call than the stuff he did call.
And they're making Nigel be so heelish. He's not. It's just ridiculous. He's just there to be the heel and disagree with everything. Nigel is a Ring of Honor color commentator, as a former pro wrestler, but you know, now he's an announcer. That was fine, but he's just like, oh, this guy's a prick. Anyway, speaking of pricks, you want to get back to Danny Garcia?
We can get back to that.
So Garcia, out of nowhere, jumpstarts it from behind when MJF is in the ring. And they go back and forth. And really the story in this show is not even the matches or the flow or the quality or trying to critique, you know, should they have hit that movement then or should they have gone to the whatever. It's just, MJF tried. He worked like a pure heel. He was aggressive. He cheated. And he's a good athlete at the same time. And Garcia can do the moves and, probably with enough work, so can a chimpanzee. But just look at him. Just look at him in the field today of major pro wrestling stars. Look at the body, look at the face, look at the hair or lack thereof. And he's fired up to do promos here lately. And it sounds like the guy that's parking your car can cut a hell of a fucking promo. He's just not going to draw any money in this day and age. And MJF is trying to elevate him. There was nothing wrong with the match per se, considering the bar that is being set by AEW. This was a fine match, but it's fucking Garcia. And there you've pigeonholed one of your top names in this fucking match to go 20 minutes with this fucking guy. And, there was, here's another example of bad commentary. MJF goes for a vertical suplex and does the deal where they go backwards and both of them go over the top to the floor, and they took a great bump.
Yeah.
Right? And Shivani immediately said, I'm surprised nobody is seriously injured. And I think Sockface is the one as well. It remains to be seen. They just hit, right? What the fuck? They took a great fucking bump and Shivani, well, they're okay. Jesus fucking Christ. And then the crowd popped on moves, regardless of who did them. Remember, the money used to be in MJF getting his ass kicked. Money used to be in the heel getting his ass kicked. These fans don't care. There are no stories. They just want to see somebody take a dangerous bump. And at one point also, the MJF, every time he gets in with one of these guys, he veers off into Indie-rific. He German suplexed Garcia. And Garcia stood up and did the same thing to MJF, Germaned him, then clotheslined him, and then fell down and started selling. They haven't been to wrestling school for 3 months, these fucking people. Anyway, Garcia hit a leaping pile driver at one point, got a 2 count. Not that I'm advocating MJF should have done the job, but good Lord. And it went so long. And then finally, MJF ducked behind the referee, hit Garcia with a fucking ball shot, and rolled him up 1, 2, 3. Which, did that come as far out of nowhere for you as it did for me?
I think it would have made more sense if the match wasn't as long.
Well, I mean, I wasn't arguing with it finally being over. And I hate to say that about an MJF match, but Garcia, and it was long. But they just did shit, and they did shit, and then MJF ducked behind the referee, boom, kicked him in the balls or whatever, that rolled him up. Ah.
I mean, that's a classic MJF finish, but it was after this whole match. That's your point, correct?
Well, my point is they didn't build to the goddamn finish. There was no element of we're getting the people more into it. We're piquing their interest. We're going back and forth. It could be anybody's ball game, and then whoom. Instead, it was like, bam. And then, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, MJF got the win, but that's not the end of the story here.
Well, no, because they laid on top of each other for a while. And then they get up and MJF offers the handshake. Like, okay, And Garcia takes it. And of course, MJF tries to kick him in the nuts. And he blocks the kick to the nuts and kicks MJF in the nuts. Then.
Look good, I got to say.
Well, yes.
It was like he kicked him right in the nuts.
And he probably did. If it's anything like his punches. But then he gave MJF a pile driver off the ropes, the turnbuckles, whatever the fuck, and then kissed him. Of course, MJF had kissed him on the head before when he was cutting that fake promo on TV. So if MJF is not the top guy in the company, then it's Osprey. They're neck and neck and everybody else is bleh. their top guy was laid out and kissed by a guy that will not be drawing a house, a buy rate, or a rating in the near future, and possibly even in your lifetime, and you're only a middle-aged man barely. And we were a half an hour into the show for this one fucking thing. So now, besides the fact that the fucking Garcia laid MJF out with a pile driver off the ropes, and he should be paralyzed for life, and then kissed him, and well, there's another big star that's been damaged in this company. Now we hear MJF's going to be taking time off. He just got back. But maybe they realized that he had a great first week, and then they fucking sent him down the goddamn porcelain throne.
Well, that's the thing. As much as they need him, the best thing for MJF is being off that TV for a while.
Yes. And we said that 6 months ago, and then he came back now 2 months later.
And I think a lot of it's Tony Khan's booking. And I think MJ, again, he needs to, when he comes back, interact with other main eventers. Somehow between now and then, make main eventers, create interest in anyone. That's the problem. Long match. I thought it went too long considering the story they were telling. It didn't need to go that long. Could have been a really hot 12 minutes. But it went a while, and, Garcia, you brought up his look. There were several matches on this show. This one, Jungle Boy versus Danielson. Danielson's not a tall guy. But when you see Jungle Boy against him, you're like, is his waist a size 24? Like, what? Seriously, you're like, give me a break.
I know, he's tiny.
Wheeler Yuta.
He's svelte.
Wheeler Yuta's looking less ridiculous because of these guys. But he's another guy that, despite whatever talent people who work there see in him, and whatever he really has, the look has been an issue. And again, I think maybe he's ahead of Garcia now. But I was looking at Garcia's legs during this. I was just like, again, I'm not saying me versus him in terms of who's, spending more time on a leg day or anything.
Are you playing a professional athlete on television?
No.
Well, somebody else is.
And that's the point. And MJF, look at his, again, I don't know why I was focused. I looked at his legs. I'm like, he had thick legs. And Garcia didn't. And it was just, you're elevating the wrong people. Again, it's not just about that, but
it's the overall aura and personality. There's a reason why the Yutas and the Garcias and the rest of the Cucamonga kids, the Lollipop Guild, the Hardley Boys and their circle of friends, there's a reason why that they were big on the indies, because it doesn't matter, because most of the people on the indies don't look like a goddamn star either. But when you are on national television and you are expecting to attract a lot of people, it's not just size, it's not just physique, it's not just looks, it's not just wrestling, it's not just personality, it's not just aura, how you carry yourself, and whether you have any personal magnetism or not. It's all of those things. And some people have so much of one or more that they can get away with having some less of one or more. But these young men are not it. So they can do the moves fine. As we will find out later on in this show, sometimes people being able to do the moves well hurts the fucking business, depending on who it is doing the fucking moves. And sometimes it just looks like anybody can do this shit. And even the dangerous stuff comes off as not dangerous because this fucking ordinary looking schlub lived through it. And that's something that they haven't figured out because nobody taught them this, because A, they've been on the indies all their life, and B, they don't fucking listen because they think they're smart.
And the other thing, I always say this, who's training everyone? Like MJF went to Pat Buck's school. Pat Buck went to OVW. You can kind of trace a lineage there, a style. There are other Pat Buck students who have made it to the main roster of these companies. Obviously, there's something there. Not to take anything away from him, because I don't know, but someone told me Daniel Garcia was trained by Brandon Thurston from WrestleNomics.
So what? No, fuck.
This is what someone told me.
How would Brandon Thurston from WrestleNomics ever have learned how to wrestle?
Well, that's my point. And this isn't to take anything away because I've never seen him wrestle, but who's training
Does he
these
actually
guys?
Actively wrestle Brandon Thurston Howell III?
I believe he did. I don't know if he still does, but he was an independent wrestler in upstate New York.
Good Lord. All right. The more you learn, I guess.
But that's the thing, you talk about some of these things about match layout and just basics. It's about who's teaching who. There aren't a lot of Jim Cornettes out there. There aren't any Jim Cornettes out there.
I didn't invent any of this shit. I just paid attention when it was being told to me.
Why doesn't Tony Khan fund like Tom Pritchard's world tour, where he just goes to wrestling students and teaches them?
Because then they wouldn't have as much fun. Because it's not about drawing crowds, selling tickets, and appealing to crowds of people. It's about as long as everybody has fun while they're making all of their money from Tony and nobody hurts their feelings. That's what this is about. Did you watch the Hardley Boys defend the World Tag Team title against Claudio and Wheeler Useless?
I watched the beginning of it because I wanted to see what kind of reaction everyone was going to get. Again, the Young Bucks for top heels who beat up the owner of the company. And I guess you can't even say it was like a hostile takeover. They didn't really take over anything. Then Tony Khan just pressed the button and all of a sudden he was in charge again. They never really rectified any of that now that I think about it. But the Young Bucks come out there and they have the history with CM Punk. They got boos, but they got sitting boos. When I said before about the crowd, especially compared to some WWE shows we see, people get up and move on WWE. They got sitting boos. People weren't even willing to stand up and yell, "Fuck you, I hate you." No, it was just, "Oh, boo!
Oh, Jesus Christ, we're going to have to sit here for another 20 minutes watching them."
They're not over at all. And they come out there, and that's all I keep thinking. Here they are. They look like they're in the pantyweight division. And they come out there, and the fans don't even react to them. Think about how much money Tony's paying them. What does Tony get back for it?
Now, I thought that when they came out, I thought they looked very professional for once. They looked like the board of directors of a massage parlor.
In Miami.
I've got one good thing to say about this match. It was under 20 minutes long. And I'll just give you the finish here. Claudio superplexed little Matt, and then Wheeler went for the splash off the top, but Matt, who had just been superplexed by this giant fucking man, raised his knees up, so Useless landed on his knees, and then he pinned him 1, 2, 3, while Nick grabbed a hold of Claudio and held his legs so he couldn't make the save. So not only did this fucking moron, Matty, just no-sell the goddamn superplex, but also the heels beat the baby faces with a babyface finish. I mean, this booking is so brilliant. I'm astonished that they can figure out. It's almost impossible to do on purpose the exact opposite thing that you should do in a logical wrestling match every time, but they do it. It's an amazing accomplishment.
I saw them get introduced, and then the next shot is, Rick Knox in the ring. I'm like, I'm not doing this again. I know what this match is going to be.
Well, yeah, if you've seen one, that's what they got, is one fucking match. Basically, there's variations on a theme, but they do all their Bucky stuff, and then the finish is stupid, and then off they go.
They are literally the faces of AEW's stunted growth.
I hadn't thought of him in ages. Marco stunted growth.
Oh, I just meant the stunted growth of AEW.
Of the overall, not the little wart, but the overall.
Not the little
tumor.
wart. No, that's right.
So we were an hour into All In, and we'd had 2 matches. And I'm thinking, well, certainly something's going to come up here that might be palatable. And we get the Intercontinental title match between Pac and Will Osprey. And I gotta say, the people were up for this one. They were standing up. They were going batshit. They're the hardest of the hardcores, and they wanted to see these two to the average person, again, here's Pac, who's been here and gone over and over for the past 5 years, right? He's here, that he's gone for a year, that he's back, that he does this, he doesn't do that, whatever. But this is the crowd, the traveling pay-per-view crowd, the big city crowd, the hardest of the diehard AEW folks that still think Pac is worth a shit. They can overlook his rotten basics and his incredible lack of any consistency in booking whatsoever. And they wanted to see him and Osprey flip with each other. Is that pretty much it? Because why else would you want to see this match to that degree that they stood up and screamed and yelled for this one? And they haven't buried Osprey yet.
And that does say something, that it seemed like the fans reacted more to this match than maybe anything else on the show other than reacting to Bryan Danielson as a person.
Yeah.
They were more into this match. And Osprey has been booked badly like Tony books everyone, but his bad booking hasn't been as bad as everyone else's. And people do want to see him. And there are still unique matches that people have not seen yet. And obviously him and Ricochet's coming up, but him and Pac is one of those matches. Pac is, one of the preeminent high flyers of the class right before Osprey.
That's why every time he gets up on the top rope, it takes him 15 seconds to fucking stand there and get his balance.
If I was a manager against him, I would bring anything, like Nerf balls to throw at him when he was up there taking his time.
A gentle breeze might bring him down. But anyway, that's what they wanted to see this because it was a video game. They didn't care who won. They didn't care whether anybody killed themselves or not. They wanted to see everybody flip around. That is this audience. And this was the flip match, so they wanted to see the flips. And in the first minute, Pac had gone to the top and dove off to the floor with the corkscrew dive, so then Osprey immediately did the same thing. Threw him back out and dove on him, and Tony Schiavone said, "What in the hell are we watching?" I was thinking the same thing, but not with the same emotion behind it. But remember, I loved Osprey and MJF. There were a few things they went too far, but in the AEW field, that was one of my favorite matches. Because MJF's going to wrestle, and he's going to try to make shit make sense, and that controls Osprey's worst instinct because he's like a lot of these guys. He needs to be produced. He's not smart enough to know when to not do something that he can do just because he can do it. But these two, they bring out the worst in each other with the aggressive parkour and the indie tropes, as the kids say. So for a match, no, it was garbage because, and I'll tell you why here in a minute, a few of these false finishes. It's a gymnastics competition. If wrestling was going to be in the Olympics like ray gun and breakdancing, this kind of shit should be in it. They're very athletic, but it's fucking stupid phony. And they both work the same. Neither one's really the babyface or the heel. There's no continuity. They're doing big moves to each other back and forth, and Uncle Dave will say, "Oh, but Osprey kept going back to selling his neck because that's the story." Yeah, he'd sell his neck in between goddamn doing shit that no human being could possibly endure and popping up from it. Pac German suplexed Osprey on his head on the ring apron. Then he gave him a reverse Hurricane Rana on the ring apron on his head. Then he rolled him in the ring and didn't cover him. He grabbed a submission hold. And then Osprey gets the ropes to break the submission hold. What the fuck? They have made this shit up themselves, and they've never listened to or had the opportunity for anybody to teach them. And now they think they know and they won't listen. The very next thing after they did what I was just talking about, Pac took forever to balance on the top, and then Osprey raised his knees, and then Osprey was up running and flipping again like nothing was wrong. After he'd been dropped on his head twice in a row on the hardest part of the fucking ring. And then finally, again, after all of that, for 20 fucking minutes again, the weakest looking move, the hidden blade, is what Osprey beat him with, 1, 2, 3. So you can be flung onto your fucking head from a 6 or 8 feet in the air and just pop right back up from that. But this fucking guy does an elbow over the top of your head from behind and you're fucking done. You're finished. I heard people say this was a good match.
I wasn't watching this live. I saw everything the next day, but I saw a couple tweets while the show was going on, and a couple of them said this was an all-timer, an all-time classic.
Well, it is if you're wanting bad examples to show in wrestling school.
A positive is, at least the fans reacted to this match.
Well, they did. They did. And unfortunately, that is the position that AEW has put themselves in. This wasn't the main event. It involved one of their main eventers, the only one that they're getting any goddamn return on, Osprey. The rest of them are deader than 4 o'clock. But how do you follow this? What is more to, well, I know how they're going to follow it, but if you were trying to do a wrestling show, nothing works. Nobody can be defeated. It's just a video game that these fucking marks in the ring, Pac and Osprey, I'm sure they play plenty of video games. That's where they get their moves from. Instead of figuring out a way to draw money, Pac looks great. Great body. Got the fucking stringy hair. He's got the menacing fucking voice. If he'd had a booker for the past 5 years and producers to tell him what to do and him listen and him be here continuously, then, you could do something with this guy. And the same thing with Osprey. Despite the gravelly voice and the horrible accent and the fact that he's so...
Imagine him calling spots with that voice.
Oh, good Lord. They talked about being hard to understand Bobby Eaton. But that's the thing. He's got a lot of appeal and charisma and talent that you could use if it could be predicted. But this is just gaga, and it's all the same. People tune it out because it means nothing. They're just there to see the flips. And then what was the point of this match that people will remember after the rest of this show they see?
Well, I think it's 2 things. One, for the fans there and the fans of this style, it was a classic to them. But 2, and maybe more importantly, in some respects, this is a throwaway show after All In. Like, I thought All In was a better card altogether. I enjoyed it more, obviously. But Osprey just had the big match there that he'd been building up to for a few months. This was built up in 2 weeks, right? A week, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
So it was just, let's give them a really hot match and then everyone can move on and do other things. So that's what I think this was.
Well, let's move on to the next match, which I got about a minute in on this one. A Chicago street fight between Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale. You go first, because you told me that you thought that they had a wonderful effort here.
I think this was the match of the night. I enjoyed this more than anything else on the entire show. That surprised me. I usually don't like these kind of matches. I usually don't like these kind of matches with the women. But Willow and Chris Statlander aren't like little waifs out there. They got some size to them. They look athletic. They can move. You believe they're women wrestlers. And they went out there and did a lot of the garbage stuff that other people do, and I think they did it better than some of the other people.
There's the problem.
I'll put it this way. They did a better job, I think, in execution than Swerve and Adam Page. Doing all that crap later
that's
on.
That's faint praise, but...
I thought this was the best match of the show. The only surprise, I thought Willow probably should have won, just because it would have gotten a big pop on a show where the fans were getting more and more deflated as it went on, and they would leave ultra deflated. I thought Willow getting a win here would have been good. They followed that Osprey match, which was the biggest match of the night, it seemed like, for the fans there. And I thought they did a good job. I really enjoyed it. I was shocked that I enjoyed it as much as I did, but I did. Both girls, I sound like you.
Hey.
Both women are really good. I wish they were somewhere else. That's like the ultimate compliment. I just wish they were somewhere else. They're really good.
I will give them another compliment. If this had been a match with these two, I would have watched it. But I wasn't going to watch more garbage outlaw mud show wrestling now with women. Because why? Fucking why on this show with all the other garbage and all the other weapons and tables and chairs and lions and tigers and bears? The opening was Statlander swinging a chair at Willow, and Willow ducked it, and Statlander then put the chair down to turn around so Willow could shoulder tackle her. And within the first minute, Willow had been powerbombed through the announce desk, and Statlander had pulled a table out.
See, they didn't waste any time. I appreciate this.
God damn. And again, as I was thinking, I would have watched a regular match with these two, but this is ridiculous. And as I said that, or wrote that, Statlander did a cannonball off the top rope where Willow was laying on a table on the floor, but Willow moved or tried to, and Statlander hit the table with her back and the back of Willow's head with her legs and nearly killed both of them.
That looked like it was very painful for Statlander's tailbone. And it wasn't just a cannonball. I mean, it was a flip.
And I mean, it could have given Nightingale a concussion with that speed and velocity. But the point is, yes, they did all this garbage wrestling stuff even better than the guys do. And that's the problem. See what I said before? Is that it depends on who's doing this shit as to whether they should even be doing it or not. And you can't have girls, and they're bleeding. Statlander's got color. And here came thumbtacks. The thumbtacks are ridiculous regardless. It's the stupidest thing ever, and I would fire anybody that even suggested it to me if I was still in the fucking business. So what kind of fucking morons are you? But to have not only a garbage, fake, phony match, but then to have the girls do it where it looks better than the guy. Well, this shit doesn't hurt anybody. No wonder these people are cheering for mayhem because they think it's all fake. Have you seen the idiots on Twitter talking about the shaved down chair again?
Oh, from later in the night.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like there's a thing called a shaved down chair. They shaved it down. What? You fucking mark idiots. I think they gimmicked the goddamn screws on the side of the seat so that they would turn easier, so that the chair would flop around a little better. But nobody makes 10 chairs. Somebody said, Tony's a billionaire. He could afford a 10 chair, a folding chair made out of 10.
10 chair factory he could afford.
That's what he'd have to afford because who makes folding chairs made out of fucking 10? You fucking morons. So when the girls do this shit and they survive, it's even worse than when the guys do it. And it's garbage and it's overdone and it means nothing and it appeals to the lowest common denominator because when we saw street fights in the territory days, nobody was smart. So like, yeah, they're having a fucking fight. Now it's like, wait a minute. They are legitimately taking barbed wire or broken light tubes or whatever the fuck they're doing and cutting each other up with it on purpose. They're cooperating with that. What kind of fucking morons are these? That's where we're at these days.
Did you see the dive off the stage or the tackle off the stage?
I skipped that, thankfully.
That was one of the complaints I will make. If you're going to ask the person you're working with, are you okay? There's got to be a better way to disguise it as opposed to just leaning your head up, looking at them and saying, are you okay?
No.
It wasn't as overt as that, but I watched it and then I watched it again just to make sure. But, you know, they're not used to diving off the stage into the black nothingness that is the weird area that has no explanation for existing.
But at least it covers up the fucking crash pad.
That's right.
Anyway, any further comments on the girls' garbage match?
Everyone should go out of their way to see it. Best match of the night.
Okay, well, there you go. And I actually might agree. It might have been the best match of the night, but considering this night for the Intercontinental title, or one of those titles, what title was the four-way for?
The other one was international. This is it Continental? This is the Continental.
I thought the International was the Continental.
No, International became the American title for a few weeks, but before it was International, I think it was the All Atlantic.
But that comprised the Continental title too, when they unified all those titles before Kingston broke his fucking clavicle or whatever he goddamn his testes. What did he break?
I don't know. Maybe Tony broke his spirit. I'm not exactly sure. But again, Tony likes titles. Tony likes titles.
There was a title up for grabs here between Pockets, Take a Shit, Mark Briscoe, and O'Cody. So think about this. In one match, you have the most embarrassing part of your company, the company mascot, Pockets. The joke was never funny, and now it's 5 years old. And he's being treated as being competitive to poor Mark Briscoe, who could have been one of Tony's top gimmick baby faces if he'd have struck while the iron is hot. Take a Shit, who actually could be the only Japanese guy they brought in that's worth a shit, that could be kind of a star if they'd have let him, but now he's just one of the boys. And O'Cody, who they paid $1 million to come here and get chiropractic treatments. Because I don't know what else he's fucking doing. That poor man, he needs to be in a body cast the way he moves around. He looks uncomfortable. So they've nullified everybody involved in this thing, including 2 guys that could have been stars for him and 1 guy he's paying millions of dollars to. And meaningless bumps and a joke wrestler. What else is there to say? This is the biggest budget indie show in history. And O'Cody won, but at least he beat Pockets. But then does that hurt a guy when you're beating somebody, but the somebody you're beating is a complete fucking joke and nobody takes it seriously? Does it help you to beat that person, or does it just make you part of the fucking joke?
You know, I really couldn't say. Even though I did not watch this live and I watched it on my DVR, I kind of let the DVR run and took a bathroom break during this match, and I left the room for a little bit, so I didn't see any of it.
Well, I hope that you watched the next match, the other girls' match. At least they didn't have any weapons to...
Except wig glue. No wig glue was allowed in this match.
There you go. I thought you were an Eskimo suddenly, but not igloo, but wig glue. Mercedes Mone versus Hikaru Shida. And, you know, boy, I'll tell you something. When Mercedes made her entrance, they barred Camille from ringside. Without Camille and without anybody giving a shit, and just with the piped-in CEO and the music, she just walking out there and people are farting. And the signs you could see across from the hard camera were CE blows and Mercedes phone. He paid this goofy, not over, wig-wearing son of a gun millions of dollars to come out there and stink up the joint. And the first 30 seconds of this looked like cell phone video on Twitter of 2 drunk chicks fighting at a Wawa. What the... You go.
To Wawa? I'd love to.
No,
right now.
You talk about this match. I didn't notice... to be honest, I wasn't paying much attention at first. When did the wig problem start? Because she was already tugging on it by the time I realized what was going on.
I'm not certain, because I did not dare watch this a second time. But I saw Hikaru Shida grab her by the hair, the wig, at one point, and I think that may have started it. And then at one point, she had her by the wig and wouldn't let go, and she was like hitting her.
Yes.
And I'm thinking either there was some kind of, well, no, she speaks perfect English, Hikaru Shida. There was no translation issue. Mercedes Mone either didn't say, watch the wig.
No, there was a part where she was definitely said, well, no, I'll tell you, about 15 minutes in.
We have to explain what's happening. I don't know if the people understand exactly.
Well, and remember I said when she debuted, I said, God, I'll tell you one thing. They did a great job of painting her hair when she had the $sign in it and she had words in it or AEW or whatever. Remember when she was going to be a babyface till people said, fuck, you suck. And you said she's wearing a wig. And I was, wait a minute, how the fuck? Because I was like, that would be hard to paint hair like that. Well, they can take the wig and move it around or whatever. But I said, how the fuck could you not only wrestle wearing a wig, but also if she had hair, it seems like that you would be able to tell she had hair under that, unless she shaved her head completely bald and is wearing these wigs. Who knows what the fuck these kids are doing these days? But this is, she actually, Shida suplexed her, like doing the Three Amigos type of suplex, right? And every time she'd suplex her, Mercedes kept pulling at her wig. And one time, you could see when she pulled it, it shifted, her hairline shifted like 2 inches down on her forehead. I'm like, what the fuck? And then Mercedes went to do the leg drag, right? Whether the old leg lace. I don't know what they call it these days. I'm sure they got a Japanese name for it. But they both fucked that up and fell in a heap. And then Shida ran and hit another German suplex and hit her with a knee lift. And right after she gets clocked with the knee lift, she's tugging on the wig. And that's when one of the times I saw, Shida grabs her by the hair like she's going to pick her up. And Mercedes goes from selling to, whoa, freaking out and grabbing the wig in her arm. And Shida kicked her in the head and she grabbed the wig. And then Shida went to pick her up by the hair again and Mercedes grabbed her arm and you could see Mercedes talking to her like, quit grabbing the wig. And then when she got a knee to the head, Mercedes, she crumples while she's holding onto her hair so it doesn't fall off her head.
No, this match became the wig match. This match was Bruno Sammartino and Killer Kowalski's worst nightmare. Because everything that happened for about, if it wasn't 10 minutes, it felt like it was. Everything that happened, whether she did something or something was done to her, no matter how devastating, she went right for the wig. To hold it, to pull it back into place. This match became about the wig.
And again, I don't know how she's been wrestling with a goddamn wig on to begin with, but maybe this was new glue or something. You know, Arn Anderson's first match, he wore a toupee.
Yeah, I heard about that.
When he was Marty Lundy. And he found out that you can't wrestle wearing a fucking toupee. But anyway, they did a tug of war with the kendo stick, and then Shida grabbed it and brought it in the ring, and Aubrey Ed just stood and stared at her while she's got a kendo stick. Like, oh, you better not do anything with that. What the fuck is the matter with these people? And then here was another babyface that wouldn't hit the heel. She was like, I could crack this woman. Well, and so she throws down the kendo stick that she brought in the ring to begin with. And then they did more awkward back and forth, and then Mercedes hit that sloppy finish, 1, 2, 3, and won it by a hair, Brian. But I have a feeling pretty soon, if the shows don't get better, Mercedes is really going to flip her wig about it.
You know, the wig is the story of the match. And again, how are you supposed to take anything seriously if every time you sell your head? No matter what happens to you, you sell your scalp. They used to make fun of Baron Mikel Cicluna. You would hit him, he would sell his ear. No matter what you do to Mercedes Mone, she sells her scalp. That's the story of the match. The bigger story is she's not over in any way.
Oh, God.
And she's not as over as any of the women that were already in AEW. And she's also not wrestling at a high level. We've been led to believe that she was a great in-ring worker. People always say, Jim never gave her a fair chance. He didn't review her and Charlotte or her and this person. Well, we're watching this stuff, and there's a lot missing. There's a lot missing. She certainly is into the performance aspect of being the character of Mercedes Mone, you can't take that away from her. She's 100% all in on that character. But no one else is. No one else is. She's less over. On this show, they had Sky Blue come out on the pre-show I saw on the DVR and get attacked by Mariah May to be saved by Queen Aminata, or whatever her name is. They were all more over than Sasha Banks was here. Willow Nightingale and Chris Statlander, after the Will Osprey match, got the fans back into their match. And Mercedes Mone, again, another pay-per-view where the performance, I don't know if lackluster is the word, but it's just not there. This time there's I don't know if you call it a wardrobe malfunction. Is a wig part of the wardrobe technically? What would you say about that? I don't know.
It's a tonsorial malfunction.
But she's getting a lot of money. From what we heard, maybe as much as any woman in the history of wrestling. Or close to it. Has she brought any new fans to AEW? Has she caused any AEW fans to become more invested in her or the product overall? Has she gotten big reactions? Has she produced a rating? Has anyone said, I can't wait for that Mercedes Mone match? Has any of the angles or interviews or backstage parties or promos, have any of them felt real or authentic or actually connected with anyone other than her? The answer is no. So, I mean, this match was astounding because of the wig.
Do you think one of the things that has hurt Mercedes with people being just like, fucking go away, is that one thing about her is genuine? One thing you can believe, it's a fact that you can look at. You can tell that she honestly believes that she's a fucking star. She is completely full of her own gravy. So does that make people go, this fucking bitch? Is that part of it? That she's not good, but she is so obviously convinced that she's great.
You know, the other thing is her leaving WWE the way she did kind of caused a lot of fans to be on her side. Because no one walked out because they didn't like booking. She did. With Naomi. Remember, Naomi walked out with her.
Where is Naomi?
She went back to WWE. She's having a nice time. But she went and she did New Japan, and the rumors were that she was going to sign with AEW. She got hurt. When she was almost ready to wrestle again, she signed with AEW. There was an opportunity to do something different and to recognize what connects with fans today. This feels like it's tone deaf. Everything she's doing is tone deaf for an audience of one. And Jennifer Pepperday, or whatever her name is. But that's the problem. You could argue about all the AEW stuff we don't like. There are usually pockets of fans that like it. I think the Young Bucks suck. They have pockets of fans that like the Young Bucks. There are pockets of fans that like pockets. Are there any pockets of fans that are into Mercedes Mone and AEW? Is there anyone who likes this run or thinks this is in any way good? I'm sure Tony will defend it, but, you know, that's what it is.
All righty. Well, we got a double main event, Brian, and it starts, of course, with the AEW World title. That can't go on last. Fuck. Don't want to cause chaos, but Bryan Danielson against the Billy Goat, Jack Perry. I'm sorry, the Scapegoat. Again, Danielson. He's incredible with what he does. The people are into him as a person, and he can build a match with anybody. His friends and some of the choices he makes about the wrestling he likes, we can take to issue, but he's a great performer. And then there's Jungle Jackoff. And you can't... Bryan Danielson is not the biggest guy in the world, but he could kick the shit out of this fucking clown in 2 seconds if he wanted to. And, you know, they're playing the final countdown again for Danielson on pay-per-view. I guess there's another couple of $100,000. And by the way, I appreciate also the the person who brought the sign that says Mama Cornette says the White Sox are greater than Jack Perry.
The White Sox are having one of the all-time worst, if not the all-time worst seasons of any team in baseball history.
Well, but they're still better than Jack Perry.
That's what makes it amazing. 2 shows in a row, 2 different companies, Mama Cornette signs.
But the crowd yesed Bryan Danielson all over the place, and they loved him. And he's wrestling Jack Perry. It's, this is not really going to add anything to the bottom line. Possibly we could have got MJF and Danielson rematched again, and that might have actually been interesting. But nevertheless, Danielson is at a level above everybody else that's pretty much been on the show, maybe except MJF. But even him with smoothness and the way that he moves and just connecting with the people personality-wise. And also, Danielson, for the most part, will call a wrestling match, and it'll make sense, although he will take and, give bumps that shouldn't be taken or given. But for the most part, it's a wrestling match. So that meant that Jack Perry was saved from his worst instincts, like some of these other assholes need to be. And, he is an obnoxious little fuck as a heel. You want to slap that face. His punches are the shits, but he can do some of the moves. If he was working like, I'm talking about Perry now, if he was working like Dominic Mysterio, it would work as a heel. The chicken shit, the fucking shit disturber, somewhat of a coward. He doesn't go toe-to-toe with the big star baby faces, but he cheats and gets from behind or has help. Perry could get heat that way. But he's trying to be a badass. Remember, he's the one that didn't quit when they were going to fucking set him on fire. One of the other lollipoppers quit for him.
One of the other heels.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in this match, he was trying to act like he was a badass at points, and it's just ludicrous. He's a child. But they don't, we've said this a million times, none of these guys, that California contingent, they've created and Tony fits this as a booker, not a wrestler. They've created personalities for themselves in their minds, and that's who they want to be. And they don't acknowledge that they don't look like that, and they can't work like that, and they don't come off like that they're just playing a part like that. Not everybody can be the goddamn Rambo, right? Somebody has to be Barney fucking Fife, but he made money too. But they can't accept the reality and work like they come off. So instead, they create this fantasy world for themselves. And some of these fucking virgins that, love the video game matches, they get into it. But the average person is like, who are these fucking children on my television? So anyway, Danielson looks great. Finally, they're cooking. Perry pulled at one point the referee into Danielson's drop kick, and so the referee is down. And then that's when Maddie and Nikki hit the ring, and they jumped Danielson, and they took their time with some phony looking heat while the referee has to lay there with, did you see his head under his arm? Again, when you bump the referee, the clock is ticking. This is what we used to teach in wrestling school in OVW. The clock is ticking. You get in, you do your damage, and you get out, because if it's real, you don't know how long the referee's going to be down. You assume that he might get up and see you at any second. So you get in and try to do what you're going to do as quick as possible and then bail, right? But they're taking their time. And they're hot dogging Maddie and Nikki because they think that they're fucking wrestlers, and they get some phony looking shit. The most careful Meltzer driver in the history of Meltzer drivers. Did you see that one?
Well, now they call it the TK driver.
Well, it ought to call the fan driver offer, but they didn't want to hurt Danielson, so they were very careful with that. And then Claudio and Useless come out and chase him off. And then Perry hits a knee and gets a 2 count. And I said, good Lord, we're 20 minutes in. And they do the interference in the middle of the match. And then they fucking go on and they lose all the momentum. And boom, they went back and forth for another 10 minutes or whatever. And then finally, as I mentioned, he thinks he's a badass of some kind, the scapegoat. And his friends pump him up. Yeah, you look tough, you little fucking midget. You look like a goddamn emaciated amoeba. Danielson is stomping Perry over and over and gets set for the fucking knee finally. And Perry sits up and just dares Danielson to do his big knee. So he does. Boom, 1, 2, 3. The fuck? Is he supposed to be a tough guy in their minds because nobody's seeing that? Because it's ridiculous. And that was, you're trying to get heat as a little weaselly heel, but yet you're daring the fucking guy to hit you with the thing that ends up beating you. So you're not only you're a moron, but also that's not a heelish thing to do. You see what I'm saying? Brian, what sense does this make?
It's just like the War Games match. Is it a heel thing for one of them to be chained up and one of his friends says, please don't burn my friend? And the guy's such a badass that he says, burn me, I don't care, I won't give up.
I'll be back bigger and better than ever after I get out of the burn unit.
Like you said, coming out of the Punk stuff, if Jack Perry had come back as a chicken shit heel with a valet, he would have been better off than he is, whatever he's doing here that him and the Bucks think is good. And that Tony thinks is
go
good.
Hollywood, the son of a Hollywood star that has no talent on his own, but he's got money and fucking women want to be around him because he's on TV. That kind of guy gets heat, and he fits it.
He's in a title match. If he had that belt around his waist, it would fall down to his fucking feet.
Now, come on, that's a ridiculous exaggeration. There's no way he could ever hold that belt up to get it around his waist.
Did you see the spot where there was a roll-up and the referee was counting, and before 3, he actually pushed Jack Perry's foot?
Yes.
Was it Rensburg?
Yeah, I think it was. And I've never seen that before, and I don't know if it was just a brain fart on behalf of the referee to just do something like that, or if it was the referee realized maybe as he was counting 2 that Perry might have thought it was 1 or didn't know, or because I don't know what, but yeah, 1, 2, push the guy's leg to get him to kick out and then start and hold up to 3. What I don't know. I've never seen that one before. Anyway, after about 30 minutes of this goddamn thing, and then Danielson is celebrating. And then suddenly here comes Dino Douche into the ring and nails Danielson. And Dino and Perry look at each other, and the announcers talk about, they used to be the partners, the Jurassic Express. And then Christian Cage's music plays.
And by the way, that was an interesting moment there, because the confrontation between the former Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, and then Christian's music hits, and Jack Perry kind of flinches. You forget he was a babyface against Christian.
Yes.
So now the heel, who just acted like a babyface in so many ways, is going to leave before the bad heel gets there.
Well, it's like the little heel's big brother, the even worse heel. Cage came out with Nick Plain and Nick Plain's mom. She is taller than the dinosaur. Did you see that?
See, that's the problem. When they got confronted, I was like, man, she could take Moxley.
Well, and that's the thing. When she's the biggest person in the group, including Christian. And when she was standing next to fucking Dino, she's tall as he is. But then as Christian is coming out because he's going to cash in the contract that he won, whatever their ripoff is, generic version of Money in the Bank. But suddenly, Moxley is in their way with his back to the ring, and here comes Pac and Claudio and Useless, and they join. And Cajun crew then back off, like, okay, because now, we'll pick a different time. And then the plumber and all of his stooges get in the ring, and Moxley hugs Danielson and kisses him. There's a lot of male-to-male kissing going on, much more than there is on the usual wrestling program. I don't know why everyone is kissing everyone suddenly. But then the other three hold Danielson's arm up and celebrate with him, and then Claudio hits Danielson with the European uppercut. Oh, God.
At least that one looked like it almost hit, because Claudio earlier in the Bucks match was basically just running around touching everyone's cheek on his breast. It looks so weak and so awful, and he's been doing that a lot lately. Just these lazy-looking, garbage fucking European uppercuts. He
don't want to hurt any of these guys because they're his bosses. They'll fire him for a potato in them. And so the BBC has acted like heels anyway. Now apparently many of them are heels because everybody goes, oh my God, why'd he do that? And then Pac is holding on to old Wheeler from helping because Wheeler is, well, you can see it on his face. He's like, why are you doing that? And he's reaching out with one arm. Pac is holding him. Now Wheeler is not saying, you better let me go, you British motherfucker. I'm going to kick you in the dick. He's just reaching over him going, no, don't do it, while he makes absolutely no effort to get away from this fucking guy. And Moxley pulls a plastic bag out. And actually it's kind of bad because it wasn't even one of the good, like, grocery store plastic bags that you can't tear those son of, they ought to make airline fucking hulls out of those things. You can't tear them, but instead is one of like those dry cleaner bags that you can just peel off with a finger. And they put it over Danielson's head, and he begins to suffocate. And the fans start chanting, this is murder. This is murder. Because it's all a joke to them, because they don't believe anything, because it's all so preposterous.
But it's not like they were screaming. That's the other thing. I don't think the reaction was what they intended.
No, they weren't screaming at all. They were just, oh, it'd be funny if we chanted, this is murder, because last week it was, this is arson. At least they're going up. They're going from arson to murder instead of backing up. But it means nothing. They weren't worried about Danielson. They were worried about coming up with a clever chant, because it's all bullshit. They know it. They can tell. So anyway, then Danielson passed out, and the heels left, and Useless stayed to help the doctor give Danielson oxygen. And then one of Excalibur's quotes was, well, that ends the sanctioned part of our program, and now the unsanctioned cage match is coming. So the attempted murder is part of the sanctioned programming, but the cage match, which will involve cinder blocks and potentially AIDS-infected hypodermic needles, that's unsanctioned.
He had said, they showed the desk, and Excalibur says, the AEW medical team is the best in the business, and then they shoot to them, and they're dragging Bryan Danielson out of the ring. He's not on anything. They're just holding him and like dragging him out of the ring while he's getting oxygen. That's how the best medical team is prepared and what they do? This guy almost died. Drag him out! Drag him out!
Yeah. We're running along on time.
You know,
and go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to, we'll talk more about this, but, the one thing a lot of people are pointing to, something you were on the booking committee for, the Terry Funk, Ric Flair plastic bag thing, and before you comment anything about that, and obviously that was a step too far, certainly for 1989 and Turner Broadcasting, the people who say you don't know, because I saw people arguing on the internet with people who said this was a step too far. They go, well, Terry Funk did it. You didn't have a problem. No one complained about that. That's what I saw someone say. Terry Funk did it, and nobody complained about that.
Everybody well, a lot of people complained about that, but one of the complaints came from Turner fucking Broadcasting. I reprinted the memo in the Midnight Express scrapbook. I was on the creative team at the time. It was Clash of Champions. It was, Oh, God damn it. I helped write the show, and now I can't. The match was Muta and Funk in a tag match against. No?
Muta and Slater against.
Muta and Slater.
Yeah, and then Funk came in as a surprise.
That's right. Muta and Slater against Flair and
Sting.
And then Funk came in as a surprise and put the plastic bag over Flair's head and tried to suffocate him. That was not original, by the way. It's an old wrestling angle. It was done in a variety of the territories, so we're not claiming any origination here, but the point is that was a clash of champions that in the 2.5-hour show, that was the end of the main event, and that was the only angle that had been shot, as I recall, on the program. They were matches that had been built up and had them, and some of the baby faces won, and some of the heels won, but nobody else tried to commit attempted murder besides Funk on the program. And that's what got all the attention. And the people believed it because they not only weren't smart as they are now, but also because of Terry Funk and his aura and whatever. And the programming executives, hold on here one second. I just happened to grip a copy of the Midnight Express scrapbook, and I'm going to flip to the page in which I reprinted the letter. It's my book, and I still can't remember what goddamn page it was on. This memo from Superstation TBS from Bob Levi and Jeff Carr. Jeff Carr was the programming guy, to Jack Petrick and Jim Hurd. October 6, 1989, which was the day after, I believe, that incident happened, or 2 days after, whatever. TBS continues to maintain an all-family programming strategy. This philosophy extends through all day parts and categories. The TBS wrestling programs and promos must be consistent with our on-air standards. Programs or promos which do not adhere to these standards must be edited or removed from the schedule, which was their nice way of saying you want to get fucking canceled. And they own the goddamn thing. So here were the guidelines. No blood is to be allowed. Any accidental bleeding that occurs in a live performance will be covered by wide shots, and replays must be edited or removed from the program. Gratuitously violent and sadistic acts to people and or animals are to be excluded from TBS broadcasts. Examples include use of a plastic bag to smother a person, lighting someone on fire from Kevin Sullivan's Fireballs. Not even actually lighting someone on fire. A blunt instrument being used repeatedly with the intent of breaking an arm, leg, etc. Incessant kicking or beating of an individual. Violent and sadistic verbal threats are unacceptable. We do not allow use of profanity or religious slurs. References made to drug and alcohol use are not allowed unless it is designed to educate and inform viewers in a positive manner. And also, attire may be provocative and entertaining, but not be either lewd or abusive in design.
AEW's violated every single one of those things.
Every goddamn one on the same network. And the network puts up with it until they don't. And then they don't. And people changing their jobs and positions has effect on that.
People are using the Terry Funk incident to justify it being done here. What are your thoughts? I didn't think this was I guess it's supposed to make you uncomfortable, but it was pretty uncomfortable and seemingly ridiculous. No one ran out to help anyone.
Well, again, see, that's all it's context and the way it's done and the venue in which it's done. Back then, when they had that Clash of Champions was viewed by what was the Clash doing in those days? 3 million, 4 million people, and it was the only angle, so it got all the attention. TBS was upset. I loved it. Flair loved it because it got heat on Terry Funk and people wanted to see the shit. And that was where we'll ask for forgiveness instead of permission. But we weren't doing shit like that every week. People weren't bleeding every week. People weren't being paralyzed and beaten and mugged and thrown into wood chippers every fucking show multiple times. And so there was a bigger element of belief to it. In this, and also you already knew that that Funk hated Flair. And this was, they come out and with no public fucking word amongst them, just Moxley starts coming out, and even the announcers go, we don't understand what the fuck's happened to Moxley. And they just decide we're going to turn on Bryan Danielson and try to kill him, even though he was in our group until a few weeks ago when he was whatever. And then it was after the girls were giving each other goddamn concussions. The fucking guys were goddamn trying to kill each other. Everybody was going through fucking furniture. And it's not even over yet. And they do this. It's just insane. It gets lost. It means nothing. These fans are laughing at it because they don't buy any of this shit. This is all the wrong reasons and all the wrong context and all the wrong times to do the wrong things. And they're trying to get their goddamn deal renewed with the network. Yes, this was pay-per-view. They gonna be able to show any of this shit on television? If you do something and you can't show it on TV, what the fuck good is it?
Yeah, imagine if a couple executives said, hey, let's check out the last couple matches at a pay-per-view before we sign this deal.
Which apparently they have a piece of, right? We've deduced that from what Tony has said before. So they, in effect, are financially connected to a pay-per-view that had not only attempted murder, but people shoving needles in each other's faces.
On the bright side, Moxley looks like he's gotten himself into pretty good shape with his time off. And, what's more badass than getting on the gas?
Well, they don't let a lot of those fucking calories and things, go into those type of places. They're on strict lockdown.
Well, I don't know about that, but
I thought he went to the fat farm.
I don't think that's what it was, but he definitely looks like, at least in his arms and his shoulders and his back, he's changed his workout regimen.
He got a heavier fucking monkey wrench. Now, whenever he's working on those pipes, he's lifting more weight.
You mentioned it before. We heard MJF will be taking time off. Swerve Strickland apparently taking time off. Does this mean Danielson's taking? I mean, how long are you out after you were almost suffocated?
About 10 minutes.
Okay.
About 10 minutes. Yeah, you wake up pretty much after that. No, we won't even talk about Swerve for a second, but anyway, that was the Danielson angle. It's a great angle if it's done by the right people at the right time to get people to want to see a match. But what is the fucking match here? Moxley and Danielson? Okay, why did he do this to... We're going to need more explanation. And why is Moxley quoting Nazis from a 30-year-old indie movie?
For the rumors about me having a skinhead group, it's not true. Meet my new member, Claudio.
But what, Claudio's Swiss, he's neutral.
No, but he's, I'm just talking about his bald head. No, it's, we'll see where it goes. The Moxley-Marina Shafir thing has been self-indulgent crap so far. Just Moxley wanting to look like a badass while Marina Shafir beats up all the people that just run at her for no reason, like she's Bruce Lee. And now he's going to have Claudio, who, I'm sorry, Claudio bores the shit out of me at this point in his career. And Pac, who will be here until his fucking green card issues pop up again. And now we're going to have MJF off TV and Swerve off TV?
Oh, boy.
We are a Will Osprey injury away from complete disaster.
They better wrap him in bubble wrap. All right, well, it's time for the main event of the evening, the non-sanctioned, apparently, cage match between Swerve Strickland and Hangnail Page. And Swerve had something. And we said that. He's got something. The people were starting to like him. And then, as soon as they really liked him, they stuck Page in this thing and delayed Swerve getting the belt until the people didn't like Swerve as much anymore. And then, when they put the belt on him, they beat the fuck out of him and left him laying like the next 3 weeks in a row. And then they stuck Page back in this thing. Page is an albatross. He is an anchor around everybody's neck. If he's involved, it's going to be bad. So now this is our main event. And as I said, Swerve had something. Then, because they dropped the ball on it, he switched him heel again.
He had something. You know what he didn't have? He didn't have anyone producing him.
Well, that's true. And he also apparently didn't have a homeowner's insurance. Or elsewise, I might have set fire to that fucking junk heap myself and collected the money.
Well, he just bought it. He just bought the house.
Well, the point is, even if he had just bought it, he could have probably come out ahead. You know, especially the yard looked like it needed a lot of work. But anyways, Swerve, he had something. The people were liking him. They waited too long to put the belt on him. They stuck Page in there to muddy things up. Then they switched Swerve heel again because they've dropped the ball on him being a babyface. But then he's against other people that are just as big, if not bigger, heels than he is. So who the fuck knows what's going on? And we get here to this thing where Swerve has purchased the home that he grew up in with his big new contract money. And Page has burned it down on live television. And of course, everybody, not only you could tell it was special effects, but you can't really burn a fucking house down on live TV if you mean it and get away with it. You'd be in prison. So this is garbage from the start that they're involving their top guys in, which is why nobody takes their top guys seriously, because they're always doing phony shit and saying stupid things. So anyway, apparently now we know that Swerve is as big of a fucking moron in real life as a person than the rest of these fucking outlaw trashes. Because if he wanted to outdo all the bad outlaw wrestling that's been on this program, he did. But that just showed us again that a guy that people were starting to like, Swerve Strickland. What do you fans think of him? Well, he's a fucking idiot. He's really fucking stupid. He's a goddamn goof, is what he is. That's what they now think, because they got to see it on live television. They didn't fool anybody with this shit, because it was both incredibly phony and ridiculously dangerous at the same time. And they don't understand that normal people, and even the normal wrestling fans, look at them and go, yeah, you two are on purpose stapling each other with a staple gun. How stupid are you? You people on purpose are cooperating to power bomb each other on cinder blocks in the middle of the ring. How fucking stupid are you? Nobody cares who wins or loses because nobody knows who they're supposed to root for, because nobody knows who the babyface is. There is really no wronged party because everybody's an asshole. So they're just looking at bumps, and they're look at these two stupid motherfuckers taking these goddamn stupid fucking bumps to kill themselves in this phony fucking bullshit wrestling match. What sense does that make? The art of wrestling is to simulate the violence and the aggression and the danger as much as possible and make it look dangerous and violent without actually being so. Not really hurt yourself, but make it look like you're not, so that the people think that not only is it bullshit in the way of a work, but it's bullshit in the way of you're not even hurting yourself. A guy gets powerbombed back first on a cinder block and gets up. Remember what ended Rick Rude's wrestling career, how he collected on Lloyd's of London and all that stuff?
Yeah, it was that move in Japan where his back, the small of his back, hit the edge of the stage they were on, right?
Yes, the ring was on a raised platform. Sting cross-bodied him when they went down the edge of the platform, hit Rude's small of his back, and ended his career. This stupid motherfucker Swerve Strickland got power bombed on a cinder block on the small of his back. Here's another, and by the way, the reason why they had all this garbage in the ring was because before the cage lowered, they jump-started and got in a fight, and Nana slid in a table and chairs and some kind of toolbox and all this other stuff before the cage lowered, and the bell rang to start the match. No disqualification, lazy, it's not lazy booking, no booking. Just let two idiots figure out what they want to do. So they pulled a staple gun out of the toolbox. Hangnail did, and starts stapling Swerve, and Swerve laughs at him and stands there and lets him do it. Okay, logically, number one, you couldn't beat anybody with a staple gun unless you used it like brass knuckles and hit them in the face with it.
Right. Why wouldn't you use it like that? It's a metal thing. It would really hurt someone.
Because these fucking never been fucked, virgin, neck-bearded, basement-dwelling, video game-playing, wrestling, indie outlaw fucking nerds think it's a show of toughness if you let somebody shoot you in the titty with a staple gun and laugh at them. No, it's an example of stupid. You're a stupid, stupid, stupid person is what you are. And normal people see that. I'll repeat what I said earlier. Stupid, stupid, stupid. I'm right up on the mic now, so you can hear me. Stupid.
I can hear
stupid. You're stupid people. So then Swerve lets him staple him and then takes it away and staples Hangnail. And they're real staples because you can see them. So anyway, again, no, you can't beat anybody in a fight that way. And nobody in a real fight's going to stand there and let you staple them. Because they're not fucking idiots. They're wanting to kick the shit out of you. So then Swerve staples pictures of his family to Paige's face. And this right here and this kind of shit is why indie wrestling has killed the business. And the WWE may make money at it, but it's hard for anybody to take any of it seriously anymore after stupid shit. Why would you want to watch this? Why would you cheer for either the pitcher or the catcher in this situation?
Or pitcher or hitter, I think would be. But I actually think this is one of the most unenjoyable matches I've ever seen.
But it's just so it's the same thing as the thumbtacks. How are you going to win a fight? Or the Legos. It's because these fucking goofs, it would hurt if you stepped on that barefoot. What kind of fucking pussies are you? Jesus Christ. I'd rather see somebody attempt to murder somebody by suffocating them than staple them with a goddamn, because at least if you suffocate a motherfucker, he'll be out of your way. If you staple him with a staple gun, what's that going to do? And if a motherfucker staples me with a staple gun and I don't take a stick and beat his brains in, then I'm mad at myself. At one point, Tony Schiavone contributed by commentary by saying he burned down his house, and it was a nice house, too. The announcers were trying to sell the house burning with straight faces.
Now, while all this is happening, it's important to note the crowd wasn't really making a lot of noise.
Well, no. Only on the various murders or when a new object was revealed.
There was tons of silence in between, and then that carried over to the commentating, which was awful. When the crowd would go silent, sometimes they ran out. There were 4 of them there. They ran out of something to say.
Yeah, and then or they do the golf thing. We can't believe what we're seeing. And they both got color, Swerve and Paige, and then the referee actually stopped Hangnail at one time from using a chair, and they booed the referee for stopping the heel from nominally bashing the brains in of the nominal babyface with the fucking chair. And then they did more chair shots. And then the cinder block thing. And Swerve got hit his double stomp finish on Paige through a table, got a 2 count. Paige got a spike of burnt wood from Swerve's house and stabbed him in the face with it about 5 times.
Yeah, what the hell was that? All of a sudden I'm watching and he pulls that out and they go, that's from the house. What? How did
Well,
we
it
know
had
that?
to be because it was a spike, a wooden spike with that had been partially burned. So where else? That's the only burned piece of wood in the world is from Swerve's house.
This is so lame.
And when the power bomb on the cinder block came, I said they both deserve career-ending injuries. Because why? Why would you do? Almost impossible to tolerate watching this, both ridiculously phony and really dangerous at the same time. Hangnail gave Swerve a power bomb off the top rope, followed by a dead eye for a 2 count. Page hit Swerve with more chair shots. Swerve started laughing at him. And then Page got him down and pulled Swerve's false teeth out. Apparently, I thought he had gotten gold crowns. Because whenever he smiles, he's got the gold teeth, right? They're fake fucking teeth. He pulled them out and threw. I thought they were going to do the Eddie Graham Boris Malenko thing because you saw him laying on the goddamn mat. I thought Page was going to stomp him. Right? They sold out Florida for 2 years in the 60s when Graham stomped Malenko's fucking teeth. But no, he took the teeth out so that he could go back to the toolkit or wherever they were getting this shit. And he got a hypodermic needle and came and he's taken the top off. And I'm thinking, my God, the really basement dwelling Ring of Honor fans back about 15 years ago got pissed at me when I had the Kings of Wrestling beat the Briscoe brothers with ether. And now they pulled out the old hypodermic. You know, they did that on ICW television one time.
No.
The
Really?
Jarretts used to hold that up as an example of when they really knew that the other guys were probably going to go out of business. It was the heel hypodermic, the fucking babyface unconscious. But anyway, he didn't stick the hypodermic needle in his vein or in his arm because it didn't have anything in it. They couldn't even come up with goddamn propofol and shoot him up with they just took the hypodermic needle and Page grabbed Swerve's face and stuck it in his mouth into his cheek from the inside of his mouth out. And then there is Swerve on his knees. He let him go and he's on his knees and he's got his eyes wide open and they got a close-up of him and he's got the goddamn hypodermic needle in his mouth sticking in his cheek and he's not trying to pull it out. And then Page takes a chair and hammers him over, and they missed the chair shot with the camera. They went wide and it was in the cage. You couldn't even see what he did. But he fucking horse collars him with the chair over the top of the head. That's why I said I believe they may have loosened up the screws on the seat so it would flop back and forth easier, but it's still a fucking chair. And boom, his head goes through the chair, and the referee calls for the bell. Winner by knockout. There have been people in these goddamn cage matches in this company that would be down selling for 2 fucking minutes. But this guy gets hit over the head with a chair and the referee, oh, fuck it. But he did have a needle sticking in his face. What the fuck? That was the finish. This kind of shit makes wrestling not only look phony and fake and stupid, but trashy and low class. It makes it look like it appeals to the same kind of people, like I said that earlier, that like the fucking insane clown posse. It runs off advertisers. It potentially gets heat with TV partners. Every normal fucking wrestling fan is like, what the fuck?
Yeah, see, there's the big thing, even beyond everything else that's significant. TV partners, advertisers. I don't think this match is a turn on the fans.
No.
This match speaks to the smallest minority of fringe fans in wrestling. And this was one of the worst things this is one of the worst matches I've ever seen in my entire life.
This is like if you gave Ian Rotten $1 billion. Some trashy motherfucker that exists on the periphery of trailer parks and trying to run carny bullshit hardcore shows in roller rinks and skirt the law and the authorities and put himself on top and cut his head in front of people to show how tough he is when he's a big, fat, bulbous fucking sack of shit that looks like one of those things they used to pour sand in the ass of so they teeter-totter. Right? That's the kind of fucking people that run the garbage hardcore wrestling shows. The trash up in Jersey, whether it's Combat Zone or Garbage Championship Wrestling. You see the owners of these companies, they should be on probation for something. They should be on a goddamn government list of some kind to keep an eye on them. Or the bloodborne diseases they're spreading around. They had a goddamn health advisory, remember a couple of years ago, here in Kentuckiana, over in Indiana with no regulation. They did another one of those fucking garbage hardcore shows. And the health department said, if you went to this thing, you might ought to get tested. Fans, get tested if you were at this place on this night. This is what AEW is going for, because that's the mentality. These fucking wrestlers that Tony's got on this roster, 90% of them have never been in a fucking real competition of anything. 95% of them never been in a fight with anybody. And they fantasize themselves as being these tough guys because they're willing to either do shit to themselves or let another motherfucker do it. That's not tough. That's stupid if you're not doing it to make money. If you're doing it so you can brag to marks who don't know any better, well, I go to Japan. That used to be Ian Rotten would fucking buy tickets to the matches at the Gardens when the Memphis office was still running with gig marks on his arms and sit in the cheap seats and tell the fans that he wrestled in Japan because that's where it was real. And all that stuff was fake. They have a desperate need to want to be someone. They can't be happy with just being a normal fucking person. You know what? If I'd have never been on wrestling goddamn television, I would be perfectly happy sitting here right now reading a fucking book. I don't need anybody to know that I'm around anymore. I just happen to do it to make money. Lots of money, actually. But I'm somebody, look at me. I cut my head. I had a needle stuck in my face. Look how tough I am. Fuck you, I've known tough people. You ain't tough people, especially Paige. Swerve Mike can go a little bit. Paige is a goddamn big pussy. He is a gaping, giant vagina.
Frothing?
Frothing. Actually, no, he'd probably dry because he wouldn't even be pleasurable. But this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and it keeps the whole company from actually succeeding instead of being funded by a billionaire as a fucking toy. And
you say it's like Ian Rotten or any of these guys got $1 million. It's like they got $1 million and then we're told, take your time. Because this took forever. This was draining. This was a never-ending match that left you really feeling unfulfilled in the end.
And hey, I said I'm not going to take sides in JR and Stephen P. New, but to take a mark's money to impart Jim Ross's credibility to this horseshit is a shame. And I think he's JR has an incredible work ethic, and he's got to be employed until he dies, even though he's got more money in the federal government. But goddamn, he should have walked out on this shit a long time ago, because it drags him down. It's embarrassing for him to be a part of this at this point.
At this point, he shows up once every 6 months.
Well, yeah, but boy, he could have showed up at another night instead of this one, because his voice will be on the tape of this fiasco, this fucking abortion for forever.
See, I get the idea of wanting Jim Ross to do the big matches, but you can't tell me he wouldn't have been better served calling MJF's match. Even Osprey's, even though he can't do the moves, because, who can keep up with all these moves? Just to add some storytelling or something there. They used him in those end matches. And at the end of both matches, he was like disgusted. He was like, that's the worst thing I've ever seen. We shouldn't justify this. You can't even tell what's real, what isn't. He did it after the fucking Bryan Danielson murder attempt. And then he did it again at the main event.
But anyway, I applaud his work ethic, but if he had better principles, he'd just fucking stand up and say, you know what? I'm going home. You people all give me fucking gas. This is the goddamn stupidest bunch of shit I've ever seen. Because you know what? I've done that a time or two, and it's cathartic.
AEW was turned into everything that we didn't like on WWE TV, and then the worst of everything we would hear about on the indies put together.
Yes, because they have unlimited budget, and they have hundreds of people willing to do this shit because they think it's cool.
And most weeks they have hundreds of fans willing to pay for tickets. They're driving away everyone. They lost everything they had with Punk in terms of the people that came to the table to check out the product. They drove them away. Then whoever was left after that, they drove a lot more of them away after they aired the video from London. And look at who's filled up the TV time since then. And now think of who's going to fill up the TV time without MJF and without Swerve. With lots of badass Moxley all over the show. This
well,
is
it is, as we said earlier, but did we say it here in conjunction with this? Now we hear Swerve is going to take time off too. Well, the fuck? Does anybody go to work there?
Well, to be fair, he has to rebuild a home that was burned down recently.
No, he just bought the goddamn. He has another home. Because he just bought that home. He couldn't have moved yet.
That's true.
Yeah. But besides that, Jesus H. Christ, he's going to take time off after a guy sticks a needle in him, crowns him with a chair, and he gets beat.
The needle thing is one of the most disgusting and inappropriate things they've probably ever done and was completely unnecessary. And again, I don't think they expected or maybe not even accept the negative response it's had from so many people.
But that's the thing. It was another thing like the thumbtacks and all the other shit. How were you in the
like Adam Page drinking Swerve's blood? I mean, these same two guys.
But how were you going to beat anyone by doing that? If they, like I said, if the needle had the propofol in it, he'd have shot him up and he'd pass out, die, whatever. Okay, at least there was a goddamn reason for it. But now you're just going to. Before they outlawed them, the circus sideshows that were so much fun, where you had the three-legged cow and the bearded lady and the world's fattest man, and then there's the human pincushion. Watch me. I'm a freak. I'm a geek. I'm the lowest part of human society. I'm on the circus sideshow tent, sticking needles in myself, but look at me. There was no way to win. But sticking the needle in it, just like, look, I'm going to do a freaky thing.
And where are the police? And by the way, that's one of those logic things everyone always looked at. There are certain things you could do on a wrestling show, but there are certain things that, if that happened in real life, the cops would be called. Sometimes you get around it because Steve Austin's over, so he could drive a truck into whatever he wants. But still, there's a logic hole there. Moxley almost committed a murder. Why weren't there police there at some point in the next 40 minutes after that match?
Taking statements.
And then Adam Page, I'm guessing, unless Britt Baker, can lend her license, he doesn't have the ability to just inject people in their mouth without their consent. Multiple crimes on multiple levels. Plus arson. Plus he's still on the streets after lighting the guy's house on fire. That's why I said at the top, this show, specifically the last two matches, are the greatest examples of mark booking ever. These are things I wouldn't have even done with my G.I. Joe Wrestling Federation as a kid. Because it's ridiculous. It's a step too far. I'll burn your house down, and then I'm going to inject you with a mystery object and crown you. It'll be so bad the cameras won't show it. AEW just keeps going down, and they always want to pretend like everything's good and everything's on the way up. It just never gets better. It gets worse and worse and worse, and it's never going to get better because Tony can't book.
Tony, without violating any NDA clauses, you want to know why stopped answering the phone whenever you'd call me 5 fucking years ago because I knew how this was going to end up, because you're a mark and the people you employ are marks and the people you listen to are marks. And I have been vindicated in my decision to quit speaking to you about this goddamn absurd bullshit. That's why. And I wish that more people in this business had a little goddamn principle to them and some backbone. And if they'd have done the same thing, maybe you would have goddamn changed your mind and not done this and left it to the potential that somebody with not only the money, but the goddamn knowledge and the willingness to try to do a serious fucking job of this would have come along. Because now AEW is it. The only competitor, the only challenger, the only even alternative to the WWE that most of us are going to get in our lifetimes is this fucking mess of bullshit because you didn't know what you were doing and you couldn't fund something and get people who had experience to fucking run it. You had to take all this on yourself and your little lollipop guild of play friends. And I'm sorry to say, I saw it when I talked to you. I heard it when I talked to you. Because he talked to me like he talks on goddamn the microphone at these media scrums.
Because he foolishly believes he understands wrestling. He doesn't understand he's a fringe-minded fan from the message boards. Still hiding on the message boards. So, I mean, that's the reality of it. You could be a big fan, but this is all as good as Shad Khan's money, and that's it. And Tony can't book. He's proven it time and time again. He's incompetent as a booker, and everything's great. Everything's great. Everything they're doing is great. Everyone who comes out of that company says the same thing. Everyone who works in that company who gets on the phone with people like me say the same thing. Tony's the problem.
Well, now Tony was the problem, but now they've grown so many other problems that you can't turn this around. They can't. It would take years to not only to retrain the audience to a sane, rational product, but to retrain the wrestlers to be able to perform it. And do you ever get a second chance after people may have tried for the last 5 years to watch this shit and laughed at it and turned back over to the other network? That's why the WWE is announcing an all-time record something every time you turn around.